And I'm here with our development project manager, Jolene.
Good evening.
And also in the audience, perfect. On the next slide, we have Travis in the audience. He is our planning specialist. The architect on the project is J&J, and we have Joe and Jen from that company here with us today, and also Corey and Kurt from REI. So between all of us, we should be able to answer any questions that you have. So our team has been working closely with city staff over the last few months, bringing us to the point of our submission for our general development plan. And so we just have a brief recap of the project and a few points that we wanted to highlight. So here's the site plan. Not much has changed from the conceptual site plan. I just wanted to note the entrances for parking in both of the proposed apartment buildings have been adjusted, and also the entrance into the proposed parking structure. And we have added additional parking surface spots on this site. That there's still a great breezeway that goes through, so we have a lot of great public access still to the river, and also keeping public access for the creek along the side.
Right, this slide illustrates the difference between the apartment building and the parking garage. As you can see, the apartment building on the left has 7 stories. The parking structure on the right has 5. And we've done our best to ensure that the design elements make the 2 buildings cohesive with each other. Next. All right, so this apartment complex offers a variety of units, right? It caters to different preferences and needs. It ranges from studios to 1 and 2 bedroom units. This design features a keystone suites with floor-to-ceiling windows, and then the top floor is all penthouse suites, and those are also studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units. These boast abundant natural light, and everyone has great views from there, and we think that people will really enjoy that. So it does, all in all, have 200 units, as we discussed.
And then for density, based on industry information and also our experience on our site at Urban West in Wausau, we have calculated the projected number of people living at this site. So we just took the average number of people for each unit type to come up with an estimate of 245 residents at this location.
Next.
Here is the south and east elevations of the building. And then on the next slide, we're just zooming in so you can see the breezeway. So based on feedback, we did make an adjustment here. So the breezeway is now 2 stories. So we really think that will improve the visitor experience and provide a more welcoming pass-through for the public on this site. And then the next picture will show a 3D rendering. So this will have a better depiction of the colors and finishes on the building. And we will have renderings of all sides of the building and the site for the SIP meeting in the future. So just showing what we have completed right now for you.
And as Jackie alluded to earlier, right, we've increased some of the parking spaces. We have a total now of 350 parking spots, which really definitely offers a lot of parking. The breakdown is that we have 30 public parking spaces, and underneath the apartments we have 43 interior parking spaces, and then the parking structure itself holds 263 tenant spaces, 15 retail employee spaces, and then 5 SCS employee spaces. So you can see that the distribution of this should allow for both public visitors and employees, really making it more convenient for all people. And then this is the elevation from the east side of the parking structure. This is what is seen facing the street. Next. And then this elevation shows the garage auto entrance there, the pedestrian foot traffic entrance, and then on the left-hand side with the taller windows you can see, or the right but the left thing, is the interior view of the elevator that will also be available in the parking structure. Next. And then lastly, this is just an interior drawing, and again at the SIP we'll have full detailed renderings, so you'll be able to see how that structure will work interior-wise as well. Next. And then lastly, we have included 5 retail spaces, again taking feedback from the committees. This is accessible both to the public and the tenants, and we really think that this design will create community interaction and engagement and be just a good space for everyone to use.
And then lastly, our proposed timeline. It does meet what has been laid out in our developer agreement and also in all of our discussions prior to this date. We do hope to come back for our SIP approval in November. We can wrap up our due diligence period and then close on the property by the end of the year. And we are on track for our June start date in 2024. And thank you for your time, and we are here for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. We might have questions, but for now, we're going to open the public hearing so that the community has any opportunity. So if there's anybody here for the public hearing as it relates to this project, you are welcome to come forward. Take your 3 minutes. Okay, if there's any, I'm going to ask a second time, if there's anybody here that would like to make any comment, testimony during this public hearing for 1200 North River Drive, the 200 Market Rate Apartments. Okay, one last time, if there's anybody here that would like to make any public comment for 1200 North River Drive, this general development plan for 7-story building that contains 200 market rate apartments. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing. It doesn't appear that anybody is here to give any testimony here, but I guess we can go ahead and then move on to item number 3, which is discussion and possible action on approving the zoning for 1200 North River Drive, the general development plan to allow for a 7-story building that contains 200 market rate apartments and 5 independent commercial spaces. Maybe before we kick off this, I would entertain a motion. A motion by Brueggemann and a second by Bornemann. Everyone wants to second this one. Who has any comments or questions they'd like to ask on this commission? Is there anyone? Yeah, Mr. Bolkin.
First of all, I'm so happy that someone's putting up a parking structure for their apartments. I think that's a great idea. Second of all, I'm wondering about square footage of some of the units, just like an average of the studio apartments, the 1-bedrooms and such.
I might need you to approach the mic so that it's for the record. Thank you.
So the studios range, they're around 800 square feet. And then the 2 bedrooms are about 1,200. However, the penthouses on the 7th floor, the 1 and 2 bedrooms are larger and they kind of range in size.
Other questions or comments? Nothing? All right, I think we're excited to vote. So I guess all of those in favor of approving the zoning for 1200 North River Drive, the general development plan to allow for a 7-story building that contains 200 market rate apartments and 5 independent commercial spaces, can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we are now on to item number 4, discussion and possible action on rezoning 519 Stark Street from a two-flat residential zoning district to an urban mixed-use zoning district. This is Breland. This was referred back from Common Council on June 13th, 2023. If maybe, would you like to give a little update on what exactly we're looking at? Sorry, Bill. I just looked at the wrong thing and saw your name.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
We held the public hearing in May of 2023. Plan Commission had voted at that time 6-1, I believe, to recommend approval. Council then referred this rezone back on June 13th, and the goal was to communicate with the property owner and the neighbor to find common ground and workable solutions. In July, we talked about potentially vacating the alley, because that was a concern that was brought up, and that isn't going to be possible. And then later on, staff was able to meet with both the property owner and the neighbor that's concerned about it, and we had a lengthy meeting. I don't think we ever came to a consensus. So we brought it back with an updated plan that was proposed by the owner. It shows a fence along the alley for the new portion of the parking lot. But I would just, advise the Plan Commission that the parking lot's for a reference. It's not, we're not approving the plan. The parking lot would be approved at a staff level. We're just considering whether it should be two-flat zoning district or urban mixed use.
Okay. Now, before the meeting, I did have a resident come forward. Even though we don't have public comment, I said we could have some time to make some comments. So if you'd like to approach the podium and give your comments.
My name is Richard Leclerc.
I'll let him, he's going to pass some stuff out for us. Oh, you were going to pass something out?
Yes.
I won't start counting.
I have written testimony here that unfortunately I won't have time to elaborate on because I've been told that when I arrived here that I will only be allowed 3 minutes to speak to this issue. And part of what I'd like to speak to is the meeting we had in the alley recently, and some of the discussion that occurred there. But I also want to speak to what happened at the original meeting we had. And that's on here as well. I was very upset. You know, when we first dealt with this thing, several commission members asked questions about the proposed parking lot, the alley that lies between the parking lot and the funeral home, and the impact of the parking lot on the residents. Because none of the homes have driveways to the streets, the alleys are only access to the homes. These questions demonstrated that the commission members who were asking them were seriously concerned about the residents' safety and well-being. Before any discussion among the commission members could begin, Brad Lenz interrupted and said, and I quote from the minutes of the May 16 meeting, quote, "This item is for rezoning. Staff will look at the parking lot standards when a permit is applied for." The rezoning question is to make a parking lot. You have to talk about the two at the same time. When City Hall representatives came to the alley to talk with us, we talked about the parking lot. We talked about the alley. That's the basic thing that has to happen before you can decide on whether to rezone it or not. The city council voted 8-2 in opposition to this zoning. The modifications you've made on this plan now are minuscule. You know, that plan out there, yes, there's going to be a fence, a plastic fence between the new parking lot and the alley. But what they did was they merged the new parking lot with the old parking lot, so when a truck comes in that entrance on the top left of the screen there, it's going to have to make a 90-degree turn to go into Lot 1, which is an existing alley, which cars can go from that alley, or from that parking lot into the alley and go down the alley uninhibited. But, what that plan says is a big truck is going to come in, make a 90-degree turn, go to Lot 1, then make a 180-degree turn in the alley to go back to the utility door on the funeral home. That's not credible. Now, if you look through this, now, okay, you can continue. I'm upset with the way that meeting was handled. You know, not one member of the commission had an opportunity to make a statement. Several members of the commission asked questions. I could see they were visibly disturbed by the answers they were getting. And then Mr. Lenz said, you know, we're not talking about the parking lot now, that's later. I looked at the form for filling out to get a parking lot. It asks, will this parking lot have gravel, concrete, asphalt? But it doesn't ask, will this parking lot exit into a street, an alley, another parking lot, I-39? No. It's assumed in that form that you have to get from the zoning office that, you know, the parking lot will exit to a street. Repeatedly, people are telling me the alley is public, okay? If you turn to page 3 of this document, one of the discussions we had in the alley a week and a half ago was about, Mr. Lindman insisted that alleys are public thoroughfares. the public can use them. I asked Mr. Lindman, does he know why some blocks have alleys and some don't? He didn't have an answer. I do. Our block was platted in 1900. When it was platted, that very same year, most of the houses got building permits in 1900. There were no automobiles in 1900. Henry Ford's, assembly line wasn't developed until 1914. Then automobile production was put on hold during World War I because Henry Ford was making vehicles for World War I. You didn't really see production of automobiles occur until, 1920s. So there were no vehicles. There was no trolley. There was no, bus system. If you wanted to get to work downtown, you walked. And the city planners were designing things so that more people could live in a smaller area. That's why our lots are 60 feet wide. None of our lots have driveways to or from the street. All of our transportation is to walk out the back door to our garage. In 1900, there wasn't a garage. And if you look on page 3 of this document, you can see that's an original, stable carriage house. You can see the double doors on the left where the carriage was stored. You can see the single, narrow, tall door. That's where the horse went in. There's that house is right next door to, you can see our cars in the driveway on this picture.
I want to thank you for your comments. I did give you more than 5 minutes to share your comments.
And that's disappointment. Now, here's one last comment. If I ran for a political office and I lost by 80%, that was the vote in the city council, 8-2. 80% voted against this zoning change.
Thank you for your comments.
If I ran for public office and got 80%, I wouldn't think of going back and doing it again. That's what you are doing. And it's illegitimate.
Thank you for your comments. So now we have an opportunity. Is there a motion that anyone would like to make? Are there questions this body needs answered or clarification? I'd be willing to entertain. Is there any, Mr. Boardman?
I just have one.
Yeah.
When this was referred back from council, it was referred back from council. It wasn't defeated at council.
Right. If it were
correct?
defeated, we wouldn't be talking about
Right.
it.
Okay, so it was just referred back to us.
Yep.
Was it referred back to us with any instructions on what to do or what they wanted revised?
I think probably the hope was that we could come to some kind of compromise, have more discussion with the neighbors, see what we can do to accommodate the competing needs. So I do maybe.
I think it was, the council, what they really wanted was they wanted staff, the neighbor, the petitioner for the rezoning all to meet and have a discussion about, so we had a lengthy discussion on site with everybody there. And then there was also some outreach and some discussion about vacating a portion of the alley, but that was objected to as well, so.
May I have a brief reaction to that?
I'm seeing the attorney say that it's not the moment now for public input, unless there was maybe a question directly from a commissioner or this body was interested.
Before you make a decision, I would respectfully
Can you at least
request
approach the mic so that
you
so that the public can hear this?
Before you make a decision, I respectfully request that you look at the last page. When the representatives of the city came and met with us, one of the things we did was Beth and I walked and led these people to the lot behind the funeral home's garage. And you can see the pictures on the last page. That, you can see to Steuben Street, where there's a car parked, and you've got at least 16 feet between the garage and the funeral home compared to the 12 feet of our alley. When we stepped back there and looked, Beth and I said, and didn't say a word. We waited for a reaction. The representative of the city stood there looking mute. Not a word was said. Why? Because they could see that's a better way to get materials to the utility door in the alley than the alley.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Are there more comments or questions from this body?
I guess.
Yeah.
The question I have is, I mean, I understand we're not talking about a parking lot, right? We're talking about a rezoning, but is the opposition that a parking lot would be there or that any commercial traffic would be occurring on an alley? And it seems to be, we're mixing the two here. And if the zoning request, which our recommendation was to proceed the previous time, and we can't come up with a solution that necessarily solves the traffic issue for safety purposes. I recall we were talking about safety, where this commercial traffic was happening, and otherwise, whether it's exiting down an alley or it's exiting out onto Steuben Street, it's just moving it in a different direction. Can we have commercial traffic down an alley? That's a question for staff. I mean, is there any prohibition for that?
There's not a prohibition for it. I mean, anybody can use an alley. It's a public right-of-way, right? But I think we try to manage traffic in certain areas of the city. We have with the signs, but that obviously hasn't fully worked either because there have been trucks leaving the funeral home and going down the alley, even though there's a sign there, that prohibits them from going down. So as there is development, I think that there has to be better signage and better direction. And I know that the owner of the funeral home has also stated that he would talk to his delivery people as well and do that to try to direct them to stay away from the alley as well. So, yeah.
I also
But
want-
there's no prohibition for it. no.
I want to recognize that the petitioner is here.
Page 4
Okay, thank you.
were taken
Thank you.
on
Thank you, sir.
September 1.
Thank you.
And then the last photo shows one of our residents' cars competing. The resident car wants to go the
Thank
right
you.
way, the truck is going the wrong way, and
We-
you
I do
don't
I do
want
thank you for your comments,
citizens in that
sir.
situation.
I want to recognize that
I regret that I'm violating the rules.
it's a lot of violation happening right now. I want to recognize that the petitioner is here and can answer some questions if there are some specifics related to maybe signage or what the plan is, if you'd like to approach and
Hello, my name is Greg Zaromsky. I'm the owner of Peterson Kramer Funeral Home and the 6th Street Filling Station Restaurant Building, which is leased out to another entity. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions you might have. One of the questions maybe that I have is how this procedure works. I have to plead that I don't do this very often. So we are looking for a zoning change right now to parking lot status. However, nothing would take place building a parking lot until a plan is approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess to clarify,
First, we do the rezone.
correct.
No parking lot until we go to another step and have everyone satisfied.
Correct, yeah. The zoning change would change it to UMU, Urban Mixed Use District. That would allow for a parking lot in addition to other uses. But similar to like building a single-family home, you have to get permits to do that, even if you have the zoning. So that's where the form that the gentleman was talking about, there's questions on there. We have standards in our ordinance that say you shall follow these things for a parking lot. So those are things that we'll look at when the permit application is applied for and make sure that it meets our standards. But the first step is to change the zoning so that it would be permitted to move to that next step, which is the application for an actual permit to build the lot, if that makes sense.
I guess the question I have is there a way for you to be able to manage the traffic in the alley and ensure that we're doing the best that you can as it relates to the neighbors, especially their concerns?
Well, we can have Vreeland, try and draw up something that funnels it in a reasonable direction. Is there a limit to the number of deliveries that we can have in the back of the building, or where are we having a problem in that respect? I mean, we've been having these deliveries since 1914, albeit not as busy as we are now at the funeral home, but nevertheless, these deliveries have been there for a long time. I'm not sure what we can do to lessen deliveries. We can certainly try through signage, through contacting delivery people, and again, with Vreeland drawing up a flow pattern that would discourage that type of.
Okay. Other questions?
Is there anything else the city can do to mitigate commercial traffic on the alley?
I mean, we could look at posting it.
I think your mic is off.
We can look at, we post things that no trucks and things like that. We can, basically it would be signage. And then potentially if that had to go into the ordinance, or if, and then really it's just an enforcement issue, once that's put in. But we did talk when we were out on site that, once we know what's actually going to be developed, that, we can go ahead and go out there with our engineers and take a look and see what sort of signage may help, how to mitigate traffic going down the wrong way on the alley as well. Yep.
And we are willing to do whatever it takes to, have a positive outcome here and help it flow the right way.
Other questions? Or maybe a motion? Is there more? Yes.
I'll make a motion to get it voted on.
All right, so we have a motion. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the rezone for 519 Stark Street from a two-flat residential to an urban mixed-use zoning district. Are there other comments or questions or needs of this body? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So I guess all of those in favor of approving the rezone at 519 Stark Street from a two-flat residential zoning district to an urban mixed-use zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? That passes.
October 10th, I think.
We're expecting this to come up at City Council on October 10th. Alrighty, next meeting date,
Oh, just had it.
if Brad has it for
October
us.
17th.
October 17th. And I guess I would entertain the last motion, item number 6 for an adjournment.
I'm making the motion for
I have a motion by Bulkin and a second by Herbst. All in favor, can signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.